In this video, we discuss C# methods, a block of code that runs only when we call it and increases readability and reusability. To create a method in a console app, you start outside of your main's curly braces. First, the word public, then static, void, and give it a distinctive name starting with an uppercase that describes what your method will do. Follow this with a set of parentheses and curly braces. Let's briefly talk about these parts. The first two are public and static. Public is an access modifier. The second is static, and this indicates it's a class method. These will both be covered in a future class. The third is our return type. We will cover this later in the video, but for now, know that the word void indicates that we are not returning anything. The last part is the name of our method. Method names should start with an uppercase, tend to describe an action, such as add numbers, display something, run code, etc., and it also follows Pascal case. This means that our first letter of every word is uppercase, including the first letter. Here you see I've written some basic code. I've declared and initialized two ints, a third to hold the value when I sum the two, and then called my code to display the result. Keep our variable scope in mind when writing methods. Every variable I declare inside of this method can only be recognized by other code inside of this method. Now it's time to call our method. To do this, we return to our main method, and then we write our method name, followed by a pair of parentheses and a semicolon. This calls our method. We see our result of 3 in the console app when we run our code. This is exactly the same as if we had written all of our code in main in the first place. By writing a method, this kept our main far cleaner. While this helps keep our code in order, our method only serves one purpose, to add 1 plus 2 and display the result. What if I wanted to add two different numbers and display the result? That's where our method parameters and arguments come in. We're going to create a new method. Again, starting with public, static, and void, we're going to give a name of add two numbers and do our parentheses and curly braces. Now in our parentheses, we're going to declare our parameters. These are like local variables without assigned values. The first is an int with the name of num1, then a second, separated by a comma, which is an int with the name of num2. You can declare as many parameters in as many different types as you need. With our two parameters declared, we now use them instead of declaring hard-coded values inside of our method. We declare an int that holds the sum of our two parameters, num1 plus num2, then display the result with a right line similar to our first method. We call our method by its name in the main code block again, but this time we pass in two arguments inside of our parentheses. Since our method is written to take two int values, we pass in 1 and 2, separated by a comma. When add two numbers gets called, the arguments are assigned to the parameter names we declared in order. So num1 has the value of 1 and num2 has the value of 2. If we had swapped the order to 2 then 1, then num1's value would be 2 and num2's value would be 1. We are able to call our methods as many times as we want, and by passing in different values, we will get different results. Since our arguments are now 10 and 50, num1 has a value of 10 and num2 has a value of 50. This should result in a sum of 60. When we ran our code, we see two different results. The first is our method call where we passed in our arguments of 1 and 2. This resulted in 3. The second was our method call where we passed in 10 and 50. This resulted in a display of 60. Now we've created a method that takes arguments by declaring parameters. This means we can pass in whatever ints we want, have it perform calculations, and display the result. Parameters allow the user to pass in values into our method and perform operations with them. Depending on what your method is supposed to do, you can take as many different parameters as you need. Now we can pass values into our method, allowing users to do different calculations, but we run into a bit of a dead end. We are not returning values out of our methods. That means our method that is calculating 10 plus 50 is displaying an answer, but then that answer goes away. It is not saved in memory and we can't do anything else with it. We need to find a way to save these values for later. That's where our return type and return keyword come in. Now we take a look at the return keyword we mentioned earlier in the video. This keyword says we plan to have a type of value return out of our method, like a promise. I promise to give you a whole number, a bool, whatever type we say. Our previous method stored a value in an int called sum, so we're going to say a return type of int. This return type can be anything you like, or void if you don't plan to return anything. If you have a return type that isn't void, then you're required to use the return keyword followed by a value of that type. Since our method is supposed to add two values together and return the answer, we use the return keyword followed by sum. Heads up, your method will tell you if it's not properly returning a value. Now with our method returning an integer, we can save that value to a variable. In our main, I declare an int, give it a name, and then call our method along with passing a couple of values as arguments. I create another variable and do the same, passing in two different values. Then I create a third and call our method, but pass in the first two variables. After everything is done, we have three variables. One that stores the result of 1 plus 2, another variable that stores the result of 10 plus 60, and then our final variable that added 1 plus 2 plus 10 plus 60, or 3 plus 70. The final display shows our results, and how we can use the return keyword to return values from a method.